Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Zach Lasley and this is my co-host,
Eli Isom.
And today we are here to bring you the Esports Weekly Update. So I will pretty much every week just be talking about Counter-Strike, and Eli will be bringing you Rainbow results and we will be commenting on those, and occasionally we might have Spencer here to talk about Overwatch. So this last weekend we had a Counter-Strike major in Berlin. And for those of you who may not know, a major is an event that happens twice a year. There are two big majors. And so there are qualifier stages for the major, and we're not going to talk about those because there are literally hundreds of matches played in qualifier stages, so there's not enough time to go over that. So we're just going to talk about the actual major event itself. So in the quarterfinals, we had Ints going up against Renegades. And so Renegades on map 1 made a solid comeback after a really tough first half on Nuke to take the map over Ints 16-12. And then on map 2 on Mirage, they just absolutely dominated Ints 16-5, which is really crazy because Ints going into the event was one of the teams that was projected to win because Ints had won a major 3 majors ago. And Ints was looking really good, and this was also their last event as a team, and they are breaking up after this. So in quarterfinal number 2, we had Team Vitality going up against Avant-Garde. And then Avant-Garde really just completely dominate the first half, and then they slowly in the second half take down Vitality's T side enough to take Dust 2 16-10. It was really just what Avant-Garde looked like most of the event moving forward. They were just completely shutting down what the other team was doing by playing their own kind of game. And then map 2, they took 16-11. The first half on Mirage, which was map 2, was actually really close, 8-7, but the second half they completely dominated Vitality, letting Vitality only take 2 rounds, finishing 16-9. And then we had quarterfinal number 3, was an absolute unit of a quarterfinal to watch. We had Astralis taking on Team Liquid. And for those of you who don't know, Astralis is, going into the event, was debatably one of the best teams to ever play the game of Counter-Strike. And they have been taking a bit of a down tick recently. They haven't been looking as good as they used to. And then we had Team Liquid, who was beginning to emerge as one of those potential best teams in the world. They are an NA powerhouse. And so map 1 was really, really close. Astralis only took it 16-13. It was absolutely insane to watch. There were a lot of really good plays on both sides. And then map 2 was really different because the first half looked a lot like map 1. It finished 8-7 in favor of Astralis, but the second half was an absolute slaughter of Team Liquid. Astralis ended up taking the second half and the entire series with an 8-1 run. They only let Team Liquid get a single round in the second half, which on Vertigo, which is a map that just recently came into Pro League and no one has really played that much of, that's impressive. And then we have the last quarterfinal here. We have NRG versus Na'Vi. Na'Vi is a really interesting team because they have debatably the best player in all of Counter-Strike, Simple. He did not perform very well this major. He just didn't look like himself. He was missing a lot of shots that even players that are much worse than him would normally hit. So it didn't really look too good. Map 1, NRG took Dust 2 16-12. Once again, Simple wasn't playing very well. His teammates weren't doing really great. But map 2 was really close. In overtime, NRG took it 19-17, ending up moving them into the semifinals. So now we have the 2 semifinals. The first one was Avant-Garde versus Renegades. So map 1 was probably one of the best matches of Counter-Strike I have watched in a long time. The first half ended 9-6 in favor of Avant-Garde. They were kind of just it really looked like they were going to do what they did in the quarters, where they were just going to play their own kind of game and just steamroll the team. But then Renegades tied it up by also having a 9-6 run in the second half, tying it up 15-15 to take it to the first overtime. Now, first overtime was once again a really strong battle of attrition, ending the first overtime at 18-18. So then we went to the second overtime, and Renegades kind of folded. Them being a new team really came to fruition here because they were not ready to play a second overtime, and Avant-Garde ended up taking it 22-19. And then map 2 was just really depressing. Renegades looked like a really good team in map 1, and then in map 2 they lost 16-6 to Avant-Garde, which is kind of crazy because, you know, Avant-Garde was a team that no one had heard of coming into this event. They're from Kazakhstan, which, you know, is a region that doesn't really play that much Counter-Strike. So, like, no one had really even heard of Avant-Garde before getting to this point in the major. And then we had Astralis versus NRG in the second semifinal. And so here we had the greatest Counter-Strike team of all time in Astralis going up against what was another one of NA's powerhouses as of recently. So the first map was not really ever close. It opened up with an absolutely beautiful play from their main opera device, getting 3 one-shot headshots with his pistol and 3 bullets to end up getting a defuse. It was a clutch that I have, the likes of which have never been seen before. And then they ended up taking the map 16-10, and the scoreline doesn't really tell the whole story because NRG was never really in the game. 10 is like, oh, maybe they had a chance. NRG never really had a chance in the game. And then map 2 was really just the same thing, with Astralis winning 16-9. And Astralis has this kind of magic that happens at the major. We're running into a major. They don't really look like the greatest team out there. They make a few mistakes, but then once they get to the major, they look completely unbeatable. And this major, kind of the same thing has happened. So Avant-Garde versus Astralis. First we have Avant-Garde here, a team who was never really even supposed to be at this major in the eyes of a lot of people, because, like, who even were they? They were from Kazakhstan. A lot of times when you think of the big names in Counter-Strike, you don't think of Avant-Garde ever. Kind of sadly for them, the major finals very much reflected the fact that Astralis had been there many times before, and they were on a 2 major win streak, and they had won 3 majors all time before going into this. So the first map was 16-5 in favor of Astralis. Astralis is a team known for really locking you out with utility, and this was just a not good showing for Avant-Garde. They kept getting smoked off and just absolutely destroyed by the utility usage from Astralis. And then map 2 was another slaughter, with Astralis winning 16-5. And Astralis made history, winning the 3rd major in a row and their 4th major all time. And many people before this had thought, oh, Astralis is the best team of all time. And you can't argue with those results. They are, in fact, after this major, indisputably the best team to ever play Counter-Strike. So that's all the CS results we have from the week. So now I'll pass it over to my co-host here for Rainbow Six Siege event.
So this past weekend, the Rainbow Six Siege event that was taking place was the DreamHack Montreal. They started out with a group stage, which was 4 different groups, A, B, and a C, and a D group. In the A group, the first 2 games were G2 and BDS, and G2 would take the first 2 maps over BDS and move on. Then Team Liquid and Luminosity played, and Team Liquid would also just take the first 2 maps and get out of there. In the elimination map, they took BDS and Luminosity to 3 maps where BDS would edge off Luminosity to get another chance. The winner's match, G2 and Team Liquid would play, with Team Liquid taking the 3rd map to move on to the quarterfinals, and G2 would move to the decider match against BDS, where BDS would come back from their first loss over G2 and beat them in the decider match to move on to the quarterfinals. And groups B, Father's Back and Dark Zero would play the first game, and Dark Zero would take that game 2-0. And then after that, Evil Geniuses would win after 2 maps against Livid. And so then we moved to the elimination map with Father's Back and Livid, and Father's Back would take that 2-0 to Livid and get another chance, whereas when the winners took on Dark Zero and Evil Geniuses. Dark Zero would win the third map to get its move on to the quarterfinals, moving Evil Geniuses to the decider match, where they would take 2 maps and move on against Father's Back. Then we go to Group C. First game, TSM and Sonics. TSM would take the Sonics to 2 maps and move on to the winners match. The other match going on would be FaZe and Supernova, and FaZe would also win this in 2 maps. Going to the elimination map, we had Sonics and Supernova, and Sonics just would not let Supernova win a map the whole tournament and send them home. Then in the winners game, TSM and FaZe, TSM would get to the third map and beat out FaZe to put them in the decider match against the Sonics, where the Sonics would then come back and beat FaZe to move on to the quarterfinals. And then in Group D, we have Reciprocity. You don't help me pronounce that. I definitely gonna mess it up.
Reciprocity.
So Reciprocity would be Chaos 2-0, and Space Station would beat Rogue 2-0. The elimination match had Chaos and Rogue, and Rogue would, like the Sonics, not let Chaos win a single map their whole time at the tournament. So Rogue would win 2-0. Then the winners match, Space Station would beat
Reciprocity
2-1 to send Reciprocity to the decider match, and in the decider match, Rogue would win 2-0 and move on to the quarterfinals. So going to the quarterfinals, we had Evil Geniuses, Space Station, TSM, Rogue, Team Liquid, Sonics, BDS, and Dark Zero. So the first game of the quarterfinals, we had Evil Geniuses and Space Station going to 3 maps, where Evil Geniuses would win 2-1. Next game, TSM and Rogue would also go to 3 maps, where TSM would edge out and get the move on to the semifinals. Third game, we had Team Liquid and Sonics, where Team Liquid would win 2-1 as well. And then the last quarterfinals game, also going to 3 maps, like the other 3, would have BDS winning over Dark Zero. So then moving into the semifinals, we had Team Liquid versus Evil Geniuses, and TSM versus BDS. Both would only go to 2 maps. Team Liquid would beat out Evil Geniuses, and TSM would beat BDS. So then BDS and Evil Geniuses would go on to play for third, where BDS would win in 2 maps to get their third place. And then TSM and Team Liquid would play in the finals and go to a third deciding map, and TSM would end up getting the win in this match and be the winners of the DreamHack Montreal, which I'm pretty sure they got. That also gave them an invite to
the Rainbow Six Siege Invitational.
Yes.
And just to speak a little bit to TSM. So this TSM roster is extremely new, unlike quite a few of these teams actually, which have been cemented in the Siege community for a while. TSM is a pretty new roster, which notably has one of the most mechanically skilled players in the game named Bolo, who he was a streamer, and a lot of people didn't think that he was going to translate well in the Pro League, and TSM getting that win kind of shows that Bolo is a force to be reckoned with in Pro League.
And I'm pretty sure he ended up receiving the MVP of the DreamHack Montreal.
Yes, he did.
Very well deserved.
All right. So that pretty much wraps up our esports review for the week. Thanks for watching.